Yeah, GM everyone. GM. We'll be starting shortly. So, good morning, Kevin. How are you doing? Let me allow you to talk. I'm coming. Okay, so now this is where we stopped last week. Last class, we talked about request and also response. We talked about how to do some basic processing, how to return the right status code, and how to return JSON response. So this morning, what we'll be doing is that we will try to integrate RJS with our backend. Previously, we've used ItJS for connecting to front-end applications, to connect to MetaMask, to perform basic functionalities. So this time around, what we're trying to do now is we are going to be creating an endpoint that allows you to check the balance of any address on ItJS. So how do we do that? The first thing we have to do is we have to create a new folder. Let's create a new folder, make directory, or we can just, let me make the directory manually. Let me make a new folder. Let me name it practice. And the next thing is navigate to that file. 21. What I will do now is that I will initialize a new project using the npm init-y. I've initialized a new project. So the next thing is for me to install the Express.js framework. npm install Express. So once we are done, we can create a new file. Let's name it index.js. Then we can import the Express.js library framework the same way we did last time. So this is it. I'm going to just copy it. Then the next thing is we can start writing our endpoints. Let's have a get endpoint. So in this get endpoint, we have a path. So what we do now is that this part, what we want to do with it is that we want a user to be able to submit an address and retrieve the current balance in way. So for us to do that, we need to specify the path like slash get balance slash then the address. We can have a function that it's going to the request handler for us, something like we have here. It's going to be the request handler. It's going to be an asynchronous function. Then once we do that, it's going to have two components: the request, comma, and the response. And name it anything. You can name it request. You can name it, use the shorthand version. So once we do that, we are going to return a response, a JSON response that consists of the balance. Let's say the balance is 0, comma, the address that we just retrieved. It's going to be something like OX, blah, 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 depending on whatever we pass here. So what I will do is that since this is a parameter, right, I can just change this to this. Then I will define this something like current address is equal to request dot, we're going to get the parent, right? Parents dot address. This is going to help us to retrieve the address that the user passed to the endpoint. Then you can use it here and return it back to the user. Then how do you now get the balance of the user from the Arbitrum? Oh, sorry, that was an error. So how do we get the balance of a particular address from Arbitrum Sepolia? To do that, we need to install our ethers library using the command npm install ethers. So once we install this ethers library, the next thing is we need to import it. You can see that the same way we did here, just import it. What we need to get is the get default provider. So I'm going to do that. Let me try to import it after this. I want to get the default provider. The next thing is start setting up the provider. This takes only a single argument, which is the RPC URL of the network you want to connect to, be it Arbitrum 1 or Arbitrum Sepolia. It doesn't really matter. You can just pass the RPC URL by saying get default provider, then provide the RPC URL. So I'm going to go here and copy the RPC that I found online. There are a lot of RPC, just you can get anyone online, and you can also use this one. Just make sure you are using a reliable RPC, or just go with the official one. So I've been able to get the RPC of Arbitrum Sepolia. The next thing I will do is that I'm going to call on the get balance address that is being provided by this provider. So it's an asynchronous function. So after is a promise after await provider dot get balance. Then you have to pass the address you want to get the balance of, and this is the address you want to get the balance of, right? So we are going to move this one down here, then pass this address to it. To pass this address, it's going to return a particular value, which is going to be in way. It's going to be a big number. But the problem is that if you try to return big number directly, it's not going to work. So you have to convert it to string first. So you can say balance dot to string, then it's going to convert it into a string, and that's how to build an endpoint that allows you to check the balance of any address. And this is also applicable to even when you want to interact with ERC 20 contracts on any network, on Arbitrum 1 or Arbitrum Sepolia. You can also follow the same method by calling on ethers.contract method, then passing the address, the API, and also you can start calling on any method you want. So let's try to start listening for requests in our server. You can say listen on port 3000, and there's going to be a function that returns like just console log, and just say console log server started on port 3000. So yeah, that's all. Let's go to our command line and run the command node index.js. So it's starting the ports, and I can open it in my browser. Let me make this public. Okay. Okay, so this there's an error. It's the endpoint we try to reach is not available. So let's try to reach the endpoint /balance/OX. Let's try to pass in a wrong address. It's going to fail. It's going to fail because the address is not correct. So it's going to crash the server. So what we can do now is that we can restart the server again and try to get a working address from Arbiscan. Let me go to Sepolia, Arbiscan. Then let me try to get an address. Okay. Or I can use my MetaMask. Let me use my MetaMask. I'm going to get this address. Let me copy it and come back to my URL. I'll replace the OX with this address and try to visit it. You can see that I'm getting the balance in a way and also the address that I passed in. That means it is working. But if you notice, there's a problem with this system that we are using. Anytime we pass in a wrong address, it's going to fail. So that's where validation comes in. So that's where validation comes in. You have to check whether the address is valid. That is possible in EtherDS too. There are a lot of ways you can validate if an address is valid. So one of the ways you can do that is by checking if it is correct according to checksum. There's something called checksum. You can try to get the checksum address, and also there's a method called isAddress, which is provided by the ETA's JS library. So under the utilities, let's try to get it. It's not available in ETA v6. I think it's address. Yeah, just get his address. You can import his address. If you are using ETA JS 5, under 5.0 and above, but lesser than 6, you can use the utility libraries to do that. But if you are using version 6, which is what we are using for this tutorial, you can see that it is version 6.11.1. So that's why we are only able to import it from the library directly. So next thing is, let's try to do some checking. Anytime someone passing an address, we're going to say that if not his address, the address that user is passing, if it is an invalid address, then what we'll be saying is that we're going to return a message that will return the response that this in, instead pressing that error, let me say message, invalid address provided. Invalid address provided. Then you can make that one kind of a bit dynamic by using string literals. You can just say invalid address provided, or the address. You can now talk about the address like this. The address here provided address is invalid. So yeah, so that's a way to check for address. So when someone passing an address, it's not going to crash your server. So let's try to restart. I'm going to restart now, and I'm going to refresh. See that I'm getting the balance, but let me try to pass in 0x, which is a 0xs, which is an invalid address. You can see that I'm getting an error now that, okay, message, the address OXS provided is invalid. So what I want to do is that I want to also add more stuff. I want to return the kind of error that we're having. So I can just say status, like, okay, this status is what status 400. So that the front-end developer can say, oh, there's something wrong with this request. But for this one, it should return something like 200, so that the back-end developer the front-end developer can know that it is working the way it is expected to. Let's go to our Postman and try to use Postman instead of our browser to do the GET request. Let me try to get my Postman. Okay. Yeah. So Postman, I'll input the address, then do send. So the moment I do send, you can see there is 400 bad requests, right? That's the error message status code that I'm getting. But for this one, if I input the right address, let me go and get the right address from my MetaMask again. Let me switch to the third account. Let me copy it and I'll be back to this. Then let me click on send. You can see that I'm getting the right response and also the balance. So that's how to also factor in errors and in case there's any error with your code. Now let's continue with the last thing for today. So how do you now interact with ERC20 contracts? What we are doing is that we are getting ether balance, right? You can also do something like this. Maybe we want to get let's copy the same code, but let's remove everything inside it for now. So what we want to do is that we want to be able to get the balance of any token or that the user is holding. So let's assume that I pass in the address of a token and also the address of a user. It's going to return the balance of that user. So I'm going to import the contract here. Then what I will do now is that let me say contract is equal to new contract. Okay. So this new contract, I imported it directly like this. So what we can do is that we can pass in the address, and the API that we want to interact with. So with this, we'll be able to interact with any smart contract on Arbitrum Sepolia. So what we can do is let's go to Arbitrum Sepolia and look for token. Let's check some token. Top ERC20 tokens on Arbitrum Sepolia. Okay. Okay. Let me view. Okay, so these are some of the transfer that have been made. This is what this USDC. Let's click on USDC. Awesome. So the next thing is let's look for an address. This is the address I want to use. You can see that this address has a total supply of. Let me check the address. Filter token by owners. Okay. I want to look for an address with significant balance. Okay. Let me copy the address here at the top of the page. This also the same thing. So the balance of the address is about 3,000. You can see the 3,400 USDC. So that's it. So let me now copy the address of the USDC token on Arbitrum Sepolia. So this is the contract. Let's check the contract out. You can see that this is a USDC contract. I'll copy the contract address, but the decimal is 6. Okay, yeah. Let's go back to our contract and paste it here. Let's do comma. Then you have to put it as a string. Then you have to put the API. So let me go and check one of our previous classes to check whether we have any ERC20 tokens. Okay, we don't have any ERC20 token, but what we can do is that we can just check this contract itself. Let's check the contract and get the API. Okay. Copy the API. Yeah, so I've gotten the API. So what I would do now is that I can paste the API here. I can see that the API is a JSON object. So what do I need? Let me check this. I don't need this. I don't need the name. I don't need the decimals. I don't need the. Okay, I need the balance of. Okay, let me remove this too. I need the balance of. I need. What's this? I don't need the symbol. So the only thing I need is balance of for now. So I'm going to copy this API. I've streamlined it so it doesn't have to just contain everything. The only thing I need is just the API for the balance of. Then the next thing is I'm going to provide a provider. Let's see. Then the next thing is that instead of calling this a contract, I can call it USDC, right? I can now say that, okay, our balance is equal to await USDC dot balance of. Then, what are we passing, right? We are passing this address, but for us to get the address, you have to do something like this. I have to get it from this parameter and also get the token. Let me do this. So this is the address. So to make this more dynamic, instead of hard coding the token address, we can just do something like this. You can get the parameter here, something like this. I'm coming. You can get this token here like this. You can say token address, and pass the token address to this one here. And it's a token address, which looks more better and more dynamic. Next thing is, instead of making this US, you can just name it token so that it supports more than just one particular token. Next thing is that token dot balance of. Then we can go here to return almost the same thing we did. Let's just return the status code 200. Then this in balance, this balance, we are going to return it as a string. Then also the address of the account you are checking the balance of. The next thing is you can also have like token as another parameter. I can say token. Then let's name token. Yeah, let's just pass token address. Yeah, so that's all. Let's restart the server and see whether it works or there's any error. So what I will do now is that I will go to my Postman. I have to go to my Postman. Then, okay, there's an error here. We didn't change the. It doesn't really matter because the endpoint is not the same. So yeah, it doesn't matter. Don't worry. So what we need to do is we need to pass the USDC address. Let me go back here and get the USDC address. So let me get this USDC address. USDC address is going to be the first thing to come. Then after that is the address we want to check. Let's check this address. The balance is about 3,400 USDC. I'm going to pass that through. Then click on send. let's check whether we have any error. So we can see that we are getting back the value and also the address and also the token, which corresponds to what we have on the Arbitrum Sepolia. It has Arbiscan, yeah, on Arbiscan. And also you notice that the decimal number is not as much as we are expecting, and that's because the decimal is just 6. So the decimal is 6 instead of 18. So that's another thing you have to also note. Lastly, if you need to perform any transaction, you have to provide a signer, right? So in our next class, we'll be looking at how to build something like Binance, whereby you allow people to check their balance programmatically. Sorry, by calling your endpoints, they check their balance. They can also form transaction, yeah, from your APIs. So it's going to be like some sort of custodial wallet where you have total control of your user's wallet. And when they want to send any transaction, they have to go through you. So that's what we'll be doing for the next class. So you have to be authenticated before you do that. So if you are not authenticated, you will not be able to perform transaction. Because I'm not expecting someone to perform transaction on my wallet on my behalf without having my login detail. Do you guys get what I'm trying to say? So that's all for today, and I'll be pushing the code now on our GitHub so you can have access to it as soon as possible. But if you want to add more functionalities, you can come here. You can do some check-ins. What if the token address is invalid? You can just be like the token address provided, which is this address here. Just replace this, is invalid. Then you can also have something like this again. Check whether the address is correct or not. So you can have something like this here. Text, or better, you can just move this whole code to the top of the page. Something like which looks better. So anytime maybe someone passing the wrong contract address, is going to return a nice error message instead of crashing the server. Then you can also remember that you can use NodeMon for your development. You can just install it by saying npm install NodeMon and save dev. You can save as dev dependency so that when you want to go into production, it doesn't install NodeMon for you. Okay. Okay, let's go to package.json. You can see that I will the right directory. Okay, yeah, let's go to our package.json. You can see that you can see NodeMon under dev dependencies. So for us to use NodeMon, you have to specify the scripts, which can be dev or something. Any name you want, and name it, let's say dev. Then you can now say NodeMon. What's the modifier you want to have access to? You can just index.js. Then let's go back to our command line and say npm run dev. So it's going to run the NodeMon for you, and it's going to run your backend using NodeMon, so that whenever you save something, you don't need to refresh. You don't need to restart the server, sorry. Then let's try the same thing again. You can see that we have the server up. So let's try to modify the address and use a wrong address and see what you get. You can see that, oh, there's a message. Okay. Could not decode the data of balance. So yeah. So another thing again, you also have to notice that using his address might not be enough at times, because there are times whereby the address is correct. Maybe, yeah, it's correct because it contains all hexadecimal numbers, but it doesn't have a checksum. So it's not checksum address. So you have to also look at how to do this checksum and other stuff like that. I'm coming. Could not decode data. Are we missing something? Okay. If not address, token address, should we return this? Are we getting an error? Let's try to run the web again. Okay, see that it's working now. So we have this nice error message. The rest of the token is invalid. So even though it's might look almost valid, something like this. Okay, let's try something else. This is going to crash the server, and that's because it is not a checksum address. So also look into how to calculate checksum address. Although it's valid according to the look of things, but in actual sense, it is not a checksum address. So to do that, you can just use the normal is checksum method to check whether it is a checksum address, which is far more safer than just using its address here. Question at this point. So if you have any question, please feel free to drop your question in the message box, or you can raise up your hand so I can unmute you. Okay, thank you everyone. Since there is no question, we'll be meeting on Monday. So we'll make sure the videos are available as soon as possible. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your weekend. And as we are preparing for the hackathon, I believe by now you guys should have gotten a team already. So yeah, someone is asking a question. Is there such a stack as okay? Is there such a stack as backend blockchain developer? If yes, what do they do? Yes, there is something like that. Yeah, backend blockchain. Yeah, backend developer. So as a blockchain backend developer, what you do basically is that you write a backend applications for blockchain applications. So for example, now if you can be working with the likes of Binance, Coinbase. So what you do is basically to write their backend. So when there's a request coming in, you do some validations, you try to contact the blockchain, you read data from blockchain, you listen for events, you do smart contract and stuff like that. So that's it. Yeah. Hope I've been able to answer your question, right? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So enjoy the rest of your day and bye bye.